You are listening to the Adapt Performance podcast, where we aim to make elite level strength and conditioning accessible to everybody. I'm your host, Jordan Webster, and let's get into the episode. Yes, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Adapt Performance podcast. It is Sunday, what's the date? Sunday, the 25th of Jan, when I am recording this. I've had a chill day, to be honest. We had a little bit of a lay-in. I did a little bit of programming this morning for the week ahead. I went in the gym. I did upper body, which was class. I'm feeling good at the minute. Training's going really, really well. And then I wanted to get down and record one of these. I put out Q&A box out this morning. Got some really good questions from you guys. I want to go a little bit deeper. And that's why I decided to do, the podcast. I love the Q&A boxes because it gives me an opportunity to interact. That's the most important thing. I can hopefully give you guys something to work on, take away, answer a few of your questions, hopefully from somebody that you trust. But yeah, this is better for me because it just gives me an opportunity to actually talk through the issue. And I usually kind of dive in the DMs after I kind of open it publicly anyway. Yeah, so that is the intention of today. I am drinking a Newtonic productivity drink. I don't know if you guys have seen them. It's like a James Smith and Chris Williamson product. And the contents are all, for the most part, stuff you can't pronounce. It's got a little bit of caffeine in. It's supposed to be what do they call it? Yeah, it is a carbonated soft drink that contains a research-backed blend of nootropic ingredients. We'll see. I've had one before. I actually had a powder version from one of the rugby lads that I train who brought one in for us. And it is nice. I think the thing that I love about this type of thing, same with energy drinks, actually, I don't feel the caffeine ever touches me anymore. It's the taste, it's the flavor, it's the psychological side of okay, when I have a Monster or I have a pre-workout or something that just tastes like what's this? This is blue raspberry. So blue raspberry reminds me of pre-workout, so if I have something that's blue raspberry, I'm like, right, it's game time. I'm off to probably fail a few reps of deadlifts, whatever that thing is. So I think it's the psychological side, but I will let you know as I go through this, if I start chatting the most amazing gear in the world and I change your life, let me know, because it's going to be down to this stuff and I'll order some more. I got it from Morrison's around the corner. It's like £2. So let's see. I don't think it's going to change my life. But we will have a go. So we're going to go through them. I've got a few questions. I've got 4 questions that I'm going to answer, spend a little bit of time on them, see which direction I go in, and hopefully give you something to take away and, some soft vocals in your ears with whether you're driving, biking, zone 2ing, whatever. So first one is, how much variety is counterproductive for performance? And I'm going to take this as a programming question, like exercise variety, day variety, all those types of things. It's one of those. If we look at some of the sports that kind of are big advocates for variety, I think the first one, or the first kind of system that jumps to mind, is the conjugate system, which is powerlifting from Westside Barbell. And it is the cornerstone of their philosophy is the law of accommodation. And the idea that if you repeat the same exercise, the same intensity, the same whatever for too many goes in a row, you're going to start to get too used to the exercise. And you're going to stop to see positive adaptations from it because the body has accommodated already. It's already realized those gains and it doesn't change the system anymore. So as a result, for their main exercises, which is pretty much, my understanding, they only really change the main exercises super frivolously. The actual accessories generally stick around for a little bit longer, and there is a lot more programming repeatability when they do their accessories. But it might be week 1, they do a deadlift from the floor with bands and they do a 3-rep max. Week 2, they do a box squat with reverse bands. Week 3, they might do a 5-rep max of RDLs, and they rotate. Okay, so every week is something slightly different to keep, shocking the system. It's not exactly what they're trying to get at, but the idea is they believe that the body will adapt too quickly, and by rotating, that is the way that you're going to get the most strength gains. And look, they are, I think, to my knowledge, this is the title that people give them, is the strongest gym in the world from a powerlifting perspective. They pump a load of steroids, they pump a load of gear, probably most gyms do anyway. So it's like, I don't think that's necessarily a differentiating factor. I think they have big cultural differences as well. But yeah, so Conjugate believes in like the law of accommodation. I've done Conjugate. I did, I think it was a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years of it when I was a little bit more interested in the strength sports side of things. I got stronger, but would I have got stronger doing a normal program? I think the biggest thing that I enjoyed it for was like me as a coach. I think it's important that coaches do train. I think it's important you experience a lot of training methods and exercise variation. And that's really what it came into. So me doing a deficit deadlift with a little bit of, chain resistance, I think that's really important for me to feel. Is doing a board press with bench press, right? So doing it like super short range of motion, see how that impacts things, how it feels, so I can then coach it better. It's probably one of the best things I took from it, to be honest. So yeah, they believe in that, right? The other sport that's popular is CrossFit, right? CrossFit, their tagline is, I'm gonna butcher it. It's repeated high intense. What is it? Constantly varied. There it is. Constantly varied high intensity movements performed at high intensity. One more. I've got one more now. Constantly varied functional. I forgot the F word. Constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity. There you go. That is CrossFit. That was their tagline. Might still be their tagline. I'm not sure. I don't follow it to the T. And obviously, when you look at their competition, the how they do things at regionals or the CrossFit Games, that is exactly what it is. And you go to like a CrossFit box and you take part in their programming, you will experience a lot of variety. However, I do think even though you need to get good at variety in order to perform good at the sport, a lot of the top guys are not following CrossFit level programming constantly varied all over the place in order to be better at their sport. They still have huge periods where they will do a strength program. Okay. They will do a conditioning program. They will do something that is adaptation led. They know they're going to have repeated opportunities at the same workout or a workout that consistently like improves and progressively overloads over time. They will do that for like big portions of their year. So you look at what the elite people do, it's that, right? They don't always train to get better at CrossFit by doing just CrossFit. There are big elements of other things as well. So variety, there's a little bit of like background on it. The S&C answer and the thing that I think about when it comes to like training athletes is your program should essentially stay very, very similar week on week, month on month. There will be little changes based on where you are in the year and your competition schedule and how your body is responding. Right, there will be progressions. There will be things that do change. However, settle down with it. Like, make it your wife. Be with your wife for a while. Right, don't just change your wife all the time or husband. The reason being, right. So let me give you a little bit of like the science behind it. Let's take strength exercise. You go into the gym and your first exercise of the day is you're going to do a back squat. Great. For the first couple of weeks of you doing back squats, you're going to see that you are putting more weight on the bar because you are making changes quickly. Amazing. You might be thinking, I'm getting stronger in those first 3-4 weeks. You are getting stronger, right? You are lifting more weight. Therefore, the task is being completed at a higher standard. But the changes that are actually happening are more to do with coordination. You are getting better at performing the skill, the task, the synchronization of motor units and muscle fibers. Everything is working together better. You're just getting better at the skill. And they've done studies on this where they've basically done that thing. Like, I'll get the participants to do 3 squat sessions a week, for a certain amount of time. We test them at the end. Their squat will have improved. Amazing. But if you look at something like their cross-sectional area of their quad muscle hasn't gone up, or you look at the leg extension strength, so still a leg-based exercise, but not the same skill, has that improved, even though they've been squatting loads? And it didn't. So it's like through those types of studies, you can, and we know this anyway, this isn't the only study that's kind of demonstrated. It's well known that we know that skill is one of the first changes. Like the neural adaptations you get from exercise is the first and foremost. That's the most powerful bit you get in the start, right? So you don't actually make physiological changes for a little while. Is it maybe 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks? It's going to be 8 weeks plus, in my opinion. So let's just aim towards that, generally speaking. So by changing your variation all the time, you're just constantly changing the exercise. You're only really going to make neural adaptation changes. You're not actually going to give your body an opportunity to really progressively overload, figure out the exercise so that you can make muscle fiber changes. So you can actually start changing things at the structural level. Otherwise, you're just getting really good at doing a variety of skills, which is cool if you enjoy that. So how much variety is counterproductive? Look, I just think you need to give the body an opportunity to adapt to the stimulus. And the only way you're going to do that is through repeated exposure to the thing. That's it. Okay. Change stuff all the time, not good. However, I do appreciate that human beings are not perfect. Okay. We do get bored. We do get a little bit like, okay, I get it. What I would recommend is if that is you and you're like, I'm just never sticking to a program all the way through, then just have built-in periods where you can look around a bit, like where you can do a new exercise you've seen on Instagram, or you can try a new circuit, or you can do a new condition, whatever. So it might be, right, the first 60% of your session is like the most important, because ultimately you want to front load the most important stuff. And as you go through the session, it becomes less of a priority, generally speaking. That is a good rule of thumb. So that is what I'd recommend, is the first 60% of your session is make that like it's locked in. Okay. Other than obviously if you turn up, you're in a shit place, you're injured, whatever, you might make changes there. That's fine. But the last 40%, feel free to fuck around. I do this with some of our guys that I work with online, is I'll program it all, but we'll have that chat and I'll be like, look, I know you like a little bit more variety. I can program you some variety and I can give you different exercises week to week, and I can, play around with that. Or if you want to kind of take some ownership and have the last 40% to do a little bit of what you want, that's fine, right? Is it optimal? Nah, not at all. However, you know what? Optimal is just kind of getting in the gym and doing the best of what you can at the time. So I'm not too bothered. For some people, look, if you want to be a world champion in a sport, like, we're going to have a conversation where I'm like, look, that last 40%, do you really want to leave the last 40% up to chance that you're going to do the right thing? Or do you really want to maximize it? So I've had those conversations as well. Sometimes a little bit more tough love with it. How much variety is counterproductive? Look, I just think you should be on a program for 4 to 8 weeks. You might make micro changes. You then change the phase a little bit to keep things nudging along, right? There is variety over the training year, but that's mostly going to come, in my opinion, via adjusting sets, reps, loading parameters, so like the intensity, the tempo, whatever. The actual exercises, even though exercises are not that important, they are important, but they're not the most important thing. Ultimately, it's the stimulus that we're trying to create, and that's where the exercises do come into it. So yeah, I think variety is one of those things. I think people that crave a lot of variety, I actually feel like it's just because they don't have their eyes set on a particular goal, and they're not super locked into this is what I want to achieve. And in which case, they're kind of just farting around a bit, and that's fine. So yeah, to wrap that up, I just think don't sacrifice your actual performance gains just for a little bit of like magpie syndrome of just looking around and just doing random shit. Is my thoughts. If you're a coach, however, sometimes you being a good coach comes secondary to your actual physical goals. I do think coaches should fuck around with their own program quite a bit, actually. At least from just to experiment and figure out, like, I like this exercise, that went well, that worked well for me. And you do still need to have like longer term phases where you really try and actually make like long-term changes, because obviously that's important for us as well. We need to know that we're essentially client number one, we're the guinea pig. And I want to see that, okay, by doing 3 days a week of this or 5 days a week of this is a change that I got over 12 weeks, therefore I can apply it to my clients. I wish more coaches trained hard and actually looked at their own training as an opportunity to develop their skill set. So yeah, there's the first one. Let me just take a swig of this Blue Raz. Yes, guys, what is going on? Quick break in today's episode for me to remind you about Adapt's online strength and conditioning coaching. Our mission really is to make elite level strength and conditioning accessible to everybody. And our service does exactly that. So you get access to everything: an elite level coach, physiotherapist, psychologist, nutritionist, a community to keep you engaged. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is give you everything you would ever need in order for you to achieve your goals. So if that is something that you are curious about, get in contact and we'll just have a no pressure chat where I explain everything, find out a little bit more about you, and we can decide whether you are a good fit for our program. Okay, without further ado, let's get back into the episode. Cheers. Okay. It gets sour. It is a little bit sour. Like, gets you and take a drink, like around the back of your jaw. I can like feel it. It's like opening it up. So next one, 3 equipment that I would use, or 3 equipment that I would want in my gym, assuming that we've got like barbells and dumbbells and stuff like that. and kind of got the basics. So for me, I love a cable machine. I think they are super versatile. I think you can do a lot of stuff with them. You can do so much of like your isolation, your accessory based work with it. I think you've got a lot of opportunity for rehab within that as well. Um, I love it. Obviously, I've got a garage gym and I've got a cable machine in there, and it's one of my favorite bits of kit, to be honest. Like as my body, particularly last year, doing a lot of competitions, got a little bit beat up at times. Like the cable machine was lovely because you can just adjust your elbow position a little bit. Therefore, you can get a little bit of load through the tricep when your elbow's feeling naff. If you were just restricted to doing like a skull crush with a dumbbell, and you had to like constantly like vary the incline of the bench in order to kind of get that feel, cable machine is totally different. Like it just gives you an option to be a little bit more flexible with things. The second one is, well, actually, it's not equipment, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Space. This is my rogue answer. I'm gonna put in there as a bonus. I just love space. Like the ability to just throw shit around, jump a bit, and just have an opportunity to do some like floor work. I think is really important. Again, not equipment. It's kind of the opposite of equipment, to be honest with you. Is let's not be in a rush to fill every bit of floor space we've got, because I think it's one of the most valuable assets you've got. And maybe that is because I generally do a little bit more athletic stuff. And the beautiful thing about space, right, is you can grab dumbbells and put it there. You can grab barbells and put it there, but then you can get rid of it. And it's just super good, right? Super good. That's the most I've got for you. Uh, okay, I'm not going to class that. I love a leg extension. I think just a really good opportunity to get high quality quad load through. I think it's great for rehab. I think it's great for building a lovely set of quads. Just just from like a well-rounded lower body standpoint, if we think about like a squat, right? Okay, the squat is the hardest at the bottom of the exercise, where you've got the most stretch through the quads. Okay, so as you start coming up from the squat and you get to like the last 20, 30, 40% of the squat, it becomes a lot easier because you're biomechanically more advantageous. You're in a better position to produce force. So nobody's failing the squat. Well, not many people are failing the squat in the last 30%. So realistically, like I don't think a lot of us, if we didn't use a leg extension, would really get really good quad stimulus through the super shortened range, not even super shortened range, but like that end position. And I think that's really valuable. I think in terms of being able to build muscle, stabilize the knee, and for a lot of sporting based movements, we look at like plyos and sprinting and look at the joint angles we're exposed to there. I think there is an element of, leg extensions like pretty solid. So I love a leg extension. If you are super tight for space, you can definitely get like machines that do both, do a bit of leg extension and leg curl. They're usually like not as amazing as just having one or the other, but obviously I appreciate floor space. And then the final one is I love some form of chest supported row. I do like a machine for that. Just so it's really stable. You can obviously set it up with dumbbells and a bench, and you can go incline bench row. That works well. You can do it with a barbell. That's the variation I've been playing around with in our gym a little bit. But yeah, like a good chest supported row, because if you can really just make sure that your sternum is locked into place and it is only your arms and your scaps and stuff that are moving, it's essentially the reverse of a bench press, right? And I think one of the reasons that people can bench press so heavy is because they've become very, very good at locking in the position and treating it like, I'm really trying to improve on this thing, this exercise. I'm really going to create the most stability and tightness possible. Well, we don't do that with rows. Like the way people approach rows is like half-assed. Like they don't try and get stronger at it. They don't try and progress it. They don't try and make each set the same in terms of their setup and their approach. And using things like wrist wraps, you could definitely use belts. Like even if the lower back is not the limiting factor, being able to brace better and create more stability in all of elements of the body is powerful. So if you want a big, juicy upper back and set of biceps, start taking your chest supporting row a little bit seriously, and yeah, you'll just notice progress. So there's my three: cable machine, leg extension, chest supported row, and bonus is don't fill your space with equipment. Keep your space because that's just like the goat. So yeah, that's my call there. I'm gonna take another swig. Love it. It does, right? So it just reminds me of going to the gym when I was like 16 years old, and I used to spend way too much money on pre-workout. Was probably having about 3 grams of protein a day, but I had my blue rasp, and I was on Grenade. Grenade back in the day used to have this. I was like Cola Killer or something like that. And it was strong and horrible tasting by design, I think. It's kind of like they do that with Red Bull. They make Red Bull like purposely quite medicinal tasting, like it has like a little bit of an offensive taste to it on purpose because they want it to be a little bit like, oh, a little bit of a wake up jobby. If it tasted really nice, like, I'm trying to think what tastes nice, kind of cola, kind of Coke, then it wouldn't really give the same effect. So yeah, I read that and I thought it was really interesting. So, does the method matter? Does the cardio method matter for 3 minutes on, 1 minute off intervals? Um, for example, running or assault bike. Okay, so for me, then, 3 minutes on, 1 minute off times 4 or 5 reps is what I would call an aerobic power session. So, you're working off of a 2-to-1 work to rest ratio. For me, I use these mostly for peripheral adaptations. And I said that wrong. I use it mostly for central adaptations. Pardon me. Central adaptations meaning heart and lung changes. So we're looking at creating stroke volume changes. So can we get more blood into the heart chamber so that we can pump it around the body, and you basically get more blood around the body per pump, which then will influence your cardiac output and generally how efficient you can be with that. I think all the benefits you're going to get is like the ability of being able to transport and deliver oxygen to the working areas, right? So it's cardiac power. That's what I would call it there. 2-to-1 work ratio. It could be 4 minutes on, 2 minutes off. It could be 6 minute on, 3 minutes off, or 1 minute on, 30 seconds off, right? You can play with the actual intensity and the round lengths if you want to. If you want to bias a little bit more towards intensity, the shorter the intervals, the more intensity you can give because, generally that's going to be the way. You do get some peripheral adaptations. You do get like mitochondrial density. So mitochondria being the powerhouse of the cell, and where like the energy is really kind of grooving down there. So you do get more of them through this type of work, and repeated exposure. Long story short, for cardiac based, central based adaptations, the method, assault bike, running, swimming, doesn't really matter. Heart and lung stuff doesn't really matter. Just get the work done, get the blood pumping, you're good, right? But peripherally, and that's like the two sides of the fitness coin, central adaptations, being able to pump blood, heart and lungs to the working muscles, and then peripheral being the working muscles and how well they can actually take that blood and oxygen and use it to create energy, movement, explosive, all that type of thing. So peripherally, it does matter what method, because when we want to make sure that the muscles peripherally are being as efficient as possible, we want to start to match up some things. Okay. We want to make sure that the muscle recruitment element of what we're doing matches the transfer. Like that's ultimately what we're coming down to there, is like the transfer. We're trying to match the intensities that we want the muscles to be able to do, right? So that's something. Can we replicate some of the intensities? We want to make sure that the muscle recruitment standpoint, like how are we recruiting the muscle? Like, is it a long muscle length, short muscle length? Is it concentric only? So for example, an assault bike, very concentric only, just go, go, go. Biking also the same. You look at something like swimming, okay, you're going to have elements of extension bias. You're just going to be kind of flapping through depending on the stroke you do. Running, you've got eccentric components of that. You've got repeated impact. So we're trying to match that a little bit and just trying to think about what are the patterns peripherally that we are trying to get good at. Okay. So if you're a runner, do it running, because you're going to have the most opportunity to transfer then, and you're actually going to get like some of the capillarization changes. You're going to get some of the actual structural changes to the tendons, the ligaments. The muscle's going to get strong and repeat in that zone. So I think if it's running, do running. If it's biking, do biking. You want to also think about the skill and the economy standpoint. Like you do want to try and replicate it as much as possible, to be honest with you, if you can. And the other thing is like some people, well, I think a lot of people will reach higher VO2 max numbers with running over something like an assault bike, because your assault bike is going to be so heavily limited by your ability to just push, right? It's going to be leggy. It's going to be army. Like your legs are going to blow up on something like that, in which case you probably can't get the intensities that your heart would need in order to get certain adaptations. I don't think it'd be an issue with a 3 minute on, 1 minute off, to be honest. Like I don't think that's anything to stress about. but it could cap your intensity. All that to say, okay, if central adaptations are your goal, first and foremost, it does not matter that much. And knowing that you do combat sports, ultimately, my preference for you would be that you do it on a non-impact thing, like an assault bike or a rower or a bike, right? That would be my preference because it's heart and lungs. I want something that's going to get that effect as efficiently as possible without any wear and tear or damage that often comes with running, right? Like running isn't inherently dangerous. Like that's not necessarily what I'm getting at. Some people just don't tolerate it very well. And the amount of people that do get like little overuse injuries, their ankles start feeling shit, the knee doesn't feel amazing with running volume. Well, look, if you get taken off the mats because you did a few too many intervals of running, that's silly. Like, that's not great. You've now sacrificed your main opportunity to get better at your sport, which is doing your sport, for something that's just not essential, which you could have got from a bike and assault bike. The beautiful thing about running is you could just go out and do it anyway. Logistically, it's amazing. So, all that to say, if it's central adaptations you're after, which is, I imagine, is what you're after, doesn't really matter. Peripherally, it matters a little bit more. But again, like it's not that important in my opinion because I've been doing a lot of sprint interval stuff, and ultimately, I think it's just about getting a super high intensity hit, and you want to pick like a modality that allows you to do that. So sprint intervals where you're trying to go 110% intensity and absolutely gun it. An assault bike is the one. A bike is the one. Rowing's not amazing; it's too slow. Ski erg's not amazing; it's too slow. Running, no, is going to be um, too much of a cost to the body because if you're not a good sprinter or a good runner, then there is a lot of risk that comes with that. You're going to see some hamstrings go ping, and you probably need a longer build into getting somebody up to a point where they can do 20 seconds max effort, rest 40 seconds, go again. So there's a long build up. So yeah, does it matter? It matters a bit, what you pick. I just don't love the running aspect. If you tolerate it, fine, do it. Otherwise, get on something safe, put your headphones in, listen to a podcast or a film or whatever, and just dig in and get it done. Yeah, so there's a little bit of the physiological and my kind of rationale behind it. Yeah, sweet, cool. Right, I'm gonna go on to the next one. So when first trying to do plyometrics after not doing any of them for years, what is my advice for introducing them? Yeah, so we get this a lot, right? We work with a lot of athletes that just haven't jumped either before or in a long period of time. Like they've fallen out of doing athletic movements to potentially do a sport that doesn't really require it. We work with a lot of like jiu-jitsu athletes and stuff like that. So if you haven't moved athletically in a little while, you just want to take your time. You don't want to rush the process. So what I'd recommend is twice a week is a nice little dose. You're going to do a 10-minute block after you do a little bit of a warm up. And what you're going to do is 60 to 70% intensity, plyos and jumping and just moving with, rhythm and flow and relaxation, little bounces, little pulses. You're going to do some hopping, which is same side. So that'd be left leg, left leg, left leg. That is a hop. Or right leg, right, right, right. You're going to do some hopping. You're going to do a variety of jumping with split stance, normal stance. You might do some lunge jumps. You might do some box jumps, some broad jumps. You might jump forward. You might jump to the side. But ultimately, what we're trying to get through with this 10-minute block of work is loose, flowy movement, 60 to 70%, building up a good amount of volume and exposure to a variety of movement patterns without overdoing one particular thing. So, like, if I was going to design one for you right now, it'd be right, we're going to do 10 reps of pogos on the spot. Okay. You're then going to do 5 reps of a lateral broad jump. So you're going to do a broad jump, but instead of going forward, you're going to go laterally with it. And then finally, I would do something vertical, which might be a hands on hip counter movement jump, right? So there's 3 exercises. You're going to do a 10-minute block. So what I would probably do is each one of those exercises, do it, rest 10 seconds before you go to the next one, rest 10 seconds before you go to the next one, rest for a minute, and then go back through as many times as you can in 10-minute time frame. Every couple of weeks, you might bump up the volume ever so slightly, or you might, instead of doing 10 reps, you might do 15 reps, or you might go for a 15-minute block instead of a 10-minute block. So gradually just building up your exposure to plyometric based movements and just giving the body an opportunity to figure out what it is. If you haven't like landed and you haven't like had that store and release component of plyometrics in a long time, which is ultimately what we're trying to look for with plyos, is your ability to tolerate load and have that fast absorption, really, so you can redistribute it into like plyometric based activities. We're trying to just build you up to that point. So that's what I do twice a week. Do a bit of that. And after a couple of weeks, we'll give you like one exercise, a counter movement jump, a box jump, a pogo, where you do give it some intensity. You might do a 95% where you're like, right, go for it. Right, I'm going to give you 3 sets of 5 reps on a counter movement jump or a broad jump, 3 minutes rest in between each one. Give me 100%. Like, try and set a world record on this. So you get a little bit of intensity. And the way I explain it to our guys all the time is, if you think about a pyramid, we've got this huge base at the bottom. That's what we're trying to do, create a really wide base. And over time, we will gradually climb up that pyramid where you'll have a little bit less volume, but it's going to be higher intensity, and you're going to climb until we get to a point where you don't need much volume because you've already acclimatized really well. We've got this wide base, but we've got a massive peak because we've done all the base work and we know that you've adapted really well, in which case you might just do a fuckload of really high intensity advanced stuff. But I'm talking years, it's years until you get to that point. So volume, yeah, that's the name of the game here, really, is getting good quality volume through. But yeah, twice a week, 10-minute block, 60-70% intensity, here with a variety. I had Matt McInnes Watson on the podcast, the plyo guy. He was pretty early on, so scroll back, and he's an absolute brain when it comes to this stuff. This is his area, it's his expertise. So go and check out his stuff. Like, he puts up a lot of great exercises you can play around with. They have specific reasons around it. So go follow him on Instagram as well. Go listen to that episode and let us know what you think. But yeah, that is typically how I'd do it. Just take your time building it up. Like, don't be the person that's like, yeah, I'm going to do plyos. I'm going to be athletic. I'm going to be an absolute beast. And then you get injured after 2 weeks because you've gone down with a little bit of an Achilles tweak. So, and this is really where, like, if you are starting to explore athletic based movements and do cleans and do stuff like this, but you haven't moved that way in a long period of time, if your date of birth starts with a 19, it's probably you. You need to, maybe be a little bit smarter about your approaches to doing different training modalities. To be honest, like, I see people go down with that type of stuff all the time. Like, yeah, I'm going to get back into running. When was the last time you ran? Oh, like 12 years ago. I'm like, oof, it doesn't fill me with confidence the way that people like rush the process. So that's what I do. That would be my approach. Twice a week, do that for a couple months. Every 6 weeks, alter the exercises slightly, but I still want you to have, there's variety within each session, right? You're not just doing the same exercise every single time in that session. There is a few different exercises, but you're going to repeat them. Going back to what we said before, is like, I want there to be actual physiological changes happening, not just neural. We do want neural changes. We do want you to get better at coordinating and stuff like that, and you will feel better really quick off these, but don't rush the thing. Swick. I just said 2 different things there. Sweet and sick. That's what it was. It's kind of like, if you've seen Mean Girls, what's the it's not fetch. Fuck. Gruel. There it is. Great and cool. Gruel. If you haven't watched Mean Girls, you need to go watch it, because I'm not just being the weirdo that just says random shit. Yeah, cool. Right. If you've got any more questions off the back of this podcast, guys, let me know. I generally do get a good couple, which is sick. I always like to hear that. And generally, like, I like speaking to you guys in the DMs. If there's little things I can help you with, perfect. I'm never super pushy about it. I'm not going to try and get you on a call for coaching. Obviously, if you want coaching, give us a shout about that. But, if I can just help you in some way, shape, or form, just with a quick voice note or something, then I'll always try and do that. But otherwise, no. Hope you have a good rest of the week. Hope training's going well for you. I am going to do a little bit more programming, I think. The missus is baking, which is sick. I love that she's got into this as a hobby. I'm all over a cookie. I'm going to chill, and I'm going to do a little bit of social media content. I'll probably crop this up. I'm going to get this out today. But yeah, buzzing. Nice one, guys. I will speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Okay, that is the end of today's episode, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, please do let us know and then share it with somebody who may find this episode interesting. Okay, see you next time. Cheers.